And at one point, I believe it would have to have been my sophomore or junior year. It was 2004. I was the guy with the John Kerry sign outside my dorm room. It was on my dorm room window. I was the guy one of the few people on my campus who was protesting the Iraq War. I found myself going home and hanging out with anarchists and with socialists and lefties of all sorts. And I love a lot of these people. I think I think a lot of them have good hearts, whether I agree with their politics or not. But I think at that point, I probably would have called myself a Democrat or a liberal or very liberal, as I think I was on my Facebook profile at one point. And what I knew was that if we would just, we would just elect the right person, if we would just give the right person the right amount of power, that everything else was going to be fixed, that the system was just going to be just healed by this great man of history. It was one of those, the first times I heard that term, going back to high school, I remember learning about FDR and how FDR instituted all of these new programs, some of which, my family benefited from, that fed the poor and electrified the South and created all sorts, just refashioned government. And the worldview that I had was that, hey, all we need is that again. We'll just have someone new come in and they'll have all the answers, and they'll be, and we'll just build a new world. Entered Barack Obama. And this was clearly 2004. And I, like so many people, were floored by his speech at the 2004 convention. And like I think it was Chris Matthews who said he had a tingle up his leg. I was watching, and I don't know that I had a tingle up my leg, but I certainly was impressed. He's one of the best speakers I ever saw. Still one of the best speakers I ever saw. And for sure, at that point, I became a Democrat. I was clearly a Democrat. I was going to be a Democrat. In fact, that fall, a friend of mine and I drove an hour. Our school was at Niagara Falls, outside of Niagara Falls, New York. We drove an hour back home to Rochester, New York, to vote. That's how enthusiastic I was. That I thought that, hey, all we got to do is get one of these great men in history. And if it wasn't going to be John Kerry at that time, it was going to be Barack Obama. Yeah, holy crap, it's going to be the black president, And John Kerry, of course, lost. And we saw the Iraq War rage on in Afghanistan. And there was all this fear of, things getting worse. And I saw the Wes Clark, interview about the potential of more wars across the world. In the post 9/11 paranoia was sweeping over our nation. And I felt, man, I got to pick a side. And boy, these lefty people, they got it all figured. And then college was over. And I'm bumming around for about a year before I got a job. And I started working overnight at a TV station. And I wanted to move down to New York from Rochester. So I took a visit with an old friend down there. And I was living I was sleeping on the couch of his shitty apartment. And we were down in Manhattan, and we stumbled upon a Barack Obama rally. I really didn't know. I didn't know he was there. And it was at one of the parks. And boy, this was a hell of an experience. He walked out to Touch the Sky by Kanye West. I never thought I'd see a politician roll out to rap. That just like, holy crap. At that point, it seemed pretty thrilling. And he went on to, talk about Iraq and how he wanted to win the good war in Afghanistan and he wanted to end the bad war in Iraq. And I'm like, yeah. And in hindsight, that seemed pretty weird. What you think about it? What? Like weird? Like good war, bad war? All right. It sounded good. And it got me. But the thing that mattered most to me was that he promised to shut down Gitmo. And for those of you who don't know what Gitmo is, it's Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. It's a part of an army base on the island where what we did was we took terrorist suspects, we tortured them, and we held them. And I still believe we hold dozens of them today without due process, without any legal proceeding in a gulag. And Barack Obama promised that he was going to end this. After he won, that didn't happen. I can't say he didn't try, because he did try. It didn't happen. He got some pushback, and then he gave up. And there's this moment that's vivid in my head. It's I was in the backseat of my housemate's car. He was a professor, much more liberal than I am. Even at that point he was. And I'm sure he is now. And I remember yelling that you hire a constitutional law professor, so they were and my friends, they didn't know what to make of me. And I didn't know what to make of them. And in hindsight, I felt like, boy, that was so naive. But I think it was in that moment, in the months that followed, where I truly started to think some things. I've always been a contrarian, and I've always challenged myself and my ideas and my thoughts. And I wondered why all this mattered. Why did it matter that Barack Obama, the constitutional law professor turned president, who I had high hopes for, would just leave a gulag on a military base and have all sorts of black sites, let alone all sorts of warrantless wiretapping and spying across the world. Let's leave all that out. Let's leave the drones out. And all that out. Just bombing people indiscriminately, murdering American citizens. Let's leave all that out for a moment. All that came later, and all that pissed me off too. But what started to snowball was, why did it matter that a constitutional law professor turned politician wasn't keeping his word? There's something deep inside me, and I still don't know quite how that it was embedded in me. I'm still working my way through that. I bet I'll be fully gray by the time I figure that one out. But that I believe in this country. I believe in our imperfect systems, like the flawed men who founded this country, that our purpose, our perpetual purpose as Americans, is to leave this country better than we found it. That we build upon the systems we have, we alter them, we debate hard, and over time we reshape them to better suit the long arc of history. And I think that begins with the Constitution. And I found the bipartisan decision to start a gulag, to hide a gulag, and then keep a gulag as an affront to all that. And for me, what followed was a long, long process of questions. Okay, so why am I a Democrat? I really didn't have an answer. Because I'd listened to somebody like a Ron Paul, and I'm like, I agree with a lot of this guy. He's not a Democrat. I listened to somebody like a Thomas Sowell, and I'm like, this guy makes a lot of sense. He's not a Democrat. Like, why am I a Democrat? And then I listened to someone like Dick Cheney or Mitt Romney, and I'm like, some of their stuff makes sense. I'm not sure I'm in that club either.